Welcome in to the Skol Purple podcast as we are here to discuss the Minnesota Vikings loss to the Denver Broncos yesterday, 21-20, and an unfortunate game-ending last few minutes of the game. It felt like the Vikings controlled it pretty much throughout the entire game, except for the final few minutes of the game when the Broncos were able to go down and take the lead and ultimately win the game on that final drive. So it's Mike and myself, Carson, here on the Skol Purple podcast tonight. And Mike, I guess you've had kind of about 24 hours almost to digest what happened last night. What are your overall takeaways from the game, and what do you think? What do you think happened that made the Vikings? Obviously, the turnovers, big deal, but what all went into the loss last night?
Yeah, mostly turnover. Actually, happened to us. Came out today, which kind of expected with the quarterback situation and a lot of starters being out. Things are going to happen, but for all the things that happen, there's some weird things like that, but mostly just got us, obviously 3-0. So I mean, it seemed like from the very beginning like that we've had the past few games, so it didn't look like really got it.
Yeah, you're cutting out as you said that, but I think you're talking about the Kareem Jackson suspension, and yeah, that briefly, he was suspended for that hit on Josh Dobbs today, as you alluded to. I think that's what you were talking about. One of the things you said there, suspended 4 games by the league. Obviously, he can appeal. He already served a 2-game suspension earlier this year. There was another hit in the game, I think, on Alexander Madison that I'm not sure if that one will get looked at or if somebody will get suspended for that one. But Mike's got some issues here with his connection. But it's one of those suspensions that needs to be handed down from the league if they are very serious about trying to get player safety right. And I think that's their biggest concern, or at least it should be their biggest concern with these types of suspensions. And it's not that it's just protecting the players that they are hitting. It's that they are protecting their own selves by these suspensions. Like with Kareem Jackson, if he would have had a helmet injury or got hurt on one of those, and then also the guy I think that hit Madison, or one of the teammates that also got hit on the hit of Madison in the game, he got hurt. So it's like it's not just hurting the player they're hitting, the opposing team, it's their own players. And sometimes you've even seen injuries like where the player that's causing the injury or is trying to make the hit, he'll get the worst of it compared to the player that he's hitting. So the league's just continuing to try and find ways to limit those hits, and can't really blame them. I think that's really what they need to do to try and get things right. But we're live here on the Skol Purple Podcast YouTube channel. Mike was having some audio issues once again. Hopefully we could get those fixed for him. But the Vikings again lose to the Broncos 21-20. Just some kind of game notes I thought from last night. First half offensively, I thought was pretty okay. They they did some good things. That Josh Dobbs touchdown pass, when he eluded a defender and just very Mahomes like. And I know Collinsworth said it on the broadcast. And again, we're not saying he's Mahomes. Obviously, there's plenty of shortcomings that Josh Dobbs has, but Mahomes, very Mahomesian, if you will, that Josh Dobbs looked like on that touchdown pass. But also, there were moments when he didn't look so good either. So, lots of different things that Josh Dobbs has shown throughout his first 3 starts as the Vikings quarterback. But there was definitely some moments last night where you could see the pressure got to him a little bit, especially on that final drive. And in the fourth quarter, I felt like it looked like he was definitely not very comfortable at times in the pocket. Even when he was scrambling, he looked a little uncomfortable at times yesterday. But the running game, other than the fumbles, both were Josh Dobbs. 2 of the 3 turnovers were Josh Dobbs. One was a fumble on that 3rd and 1, which I know a lot of people are questioning that play call. I kind of agree. Why are you calling that on 3rd and 1? I think somebody mentioned that it's probably more of a red zone or a inside the 5-yard line type of play, which I would agree. That's, you're trying to get creative down inside the red zone. That's something I would pull out. Not that at that time. But it is what it is. I think Kevin O'Connell had one of his worst games of the year, play calling wise at times. There definitely were good moments, but there were definitely things that he could have done better last night. So I would say those things. Obviously, Alexander Mattison ran the ball really well. I know a lot of people are ready to get him out of the off the team because of the fumbles. That's only his 2nd lost fumble of the season. But I would agree that they've been at really inopportune times. And obviously he's dropped some passes that could have been touchdowns or big plays in games. So there's that too. And I'm not by any means trying to say that Alexander Mattison should be the starter for years to come, because I don't believe that to be true. But other things that went into that game last night too. It's not just on Mattison. But with that being said, I would definitely love to see more Ty Chandler. He looked really good, especially on that punt direct snap that he got last night. That was a really cool, fun play to see. Something we haven't seen for a while. I think the Vikings maybe did one earlier this year, perhaps. But yeah, that was fun to see the Vikings do that. But anyways, if you guys have any comments, feel free to go ahead and get those in. Mike was joining me, but he's been having some issues with staying connected. So feel free to get your comments in as you file in here, and let us know your thoughts from the Vikings loss to Denver 21-20. It's the Skol Purple Podcast Fan Express line as we recap that game last night. Defensively, by the way, I thought the Vikings were very good. They didn't do anything really to lose the game. I mean, the final drive obviously was not ideal, but honestly, I think that the defense deserved to win that game based on how they played. I mean, off the 3 Vikings turnovers, they allowed 9 points. That is pretty incredible that you only allow 9 points off those 3 turnovers. So that's a lot of credit to Brian Flores, a lot of credit to the defense. Mekhi Blackmon obviously didn't play very well last night. I thought, he had some moments, but overall didn't play that great. But again, when your number 2 corner, Caleb Evans, goes out, it's very hard to fill that role if you don't have quality depth, which I don't think Blackman's a bad player, but when he's not had a ton of playing time, it's hard to expect him to come in and be as good as a Caleb Evans. And not to say that a Caleb Evans is a world beater out there, but he has been pretty decent throughout the course of the season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that position going forward if Caleb Evans is able to come back for the Monday night game next week against Chicago. But yeah, it was one of those games that it kind of felt like the Vikings had control of. Um, like I was telling Mike before we lost connection. It just kind of felt like the Vikings were in control for probably 3.5 quarters of the game or pretty close to it, and just could not finish in the end. They turned the ball over, and that was the main difference in the game. And it just kind of felt like every time they had a chance to really, okay, they can really separate themselves here, they turned it over. Or Kevin O'Connell, also, by the way, I tweeted this out on my account yesterday. Didn't like him getting conservative in the red zone on the final second to last drive of the game for the Vikings. Um, he was very how do I want to say it? Very conservative. Yeah, that's what I was going for. He was very conservative on that second to last drive of the game for the Vikings, I thought. And yeah, it was. You really saw it. You really saw it come through. I thought when they ran the ball, I think all 3 times, or maybe 2 of the 3, and they finally passed on third down, and it ended up in a disaster. I think Josh Dobbs almost turned it over there, but thankfully they kicked the field goal, but didn't end up making a difference really. So unfortunately, but yeah, it's one of those things that you move on. But I do think Kevin O'Connell's got to be more aggressive in those situations. I don't care who your quarterback is. I don't care how well your defense has played throughout the course of the game. I know he wants to show confidence in the defense, but man, you got to go out and you don't play not to lose. You got to play to win. And I didn't think Kevin O'Connell did that in that situation last night when the Vikings could have potentially had a dagger with a touchdown and potentially go for 2 with a 2-point conversion and make it really tough. I think on the Broncos, because it was 20 to 15, was it? Okay, so 20 to 15. So they couldn't have put it away, but they could have made it an 8-point game. So they could have made it an 8-point game, I think, right? So if they would have scored, so they had the 17 to 15 lead, and then they went in and scored the field goal. So instead of 17, so they could have had 24. Yeah, it would have been a dagger. So it would have been a dagger. 24 to 15 with less than 3 or 4 minutes, less than 5 minutes remaining in the game. So if they would have scored a touchdown, that could have been the difference in the game, or that could have been the dagger, the final nail in the coffin. But unfortunately, like I said, Kevin O'Connell got conservative. So overall, I still think he's doing a really good job. Like what he's done with Josh Dobbs over the last couple of weeks has been incredible. But in that situation, you have to be aggressive. I mean, if you turn the ball over, you turn the ball over, because you can't know for a guarantee that the defense is going to stop Russell Wilson on that final drive of the game. Like, just because they've been playing well doesn't mean that it's not going. I mean, yeah, I know you want to show confidence in your defense, all that. But even if let's say worst case scenario happens, Broncos throw a pick six, or the Vikings throw a pick six on one of those passes from Dobbs, then the Vikings have the opportunity, multiple minutes remaining on the clock with all 3 timeouts, to go back down and score themselves. So that would be the worst case scenario. And I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, obviously it's not the best, but I think that's the worst thing that could have happened probably had the Vikings been more aggressive on that final second to last drive of the game. But yeah, and like I said, we mentioned this earlier. Kareem Jackson was suspended for the hit on Dobbs. My dad commenting in there, but yeah, it's and there was another hit on Madison that was very questionable too. That there were missed flags on, and I know Sean Payton and Bountygate. We remember that all too well, and we don't really want to talk. We don't really want to have more of that crap going on with Sean Payton, but here we could be right in that same spot again. So, yeah, I think defensively, the defense deserved to win that game. Like I said, they played well enough to win. The offense lost the game, whether it was just through the turnovers, that conservative few play calls in the red zone from KOC, especially after you went for the fake punt, man. Like, be aggressive. You were aggressive on the fake punt, but not aggressive in the red zone once you get deep in the red. Like, what's the deal with that? And maybe he would say that he felt like he was aggressive enough, or I don't know, but it didn't seem very aggressive from my point of view, and I'm guessing a few of you out there probably felt the same way. But anyways, they go home next Monday night to play the Bears. It's a very winnable game, but the Bears are we shouldn't take that with a no-brainer that this is going to be a win for the Vikings next Monday night. They are at home, which is great, but they are very capable if they turn the ball over like they did on Sunday night last night. They're very capable of just laying a dud like that, or not necessarily a dud, but turning the ball over like that just seems like they could lose to anybody if they turn the ball over like that. So they can't. They've got to protect the ball next Monday night, and they got to try and take the ball away from Justin Fields and that Bears offense, and then hopefully they can get a win, even if it's a close win next Monday night, so that way they can go into the bye week with a 7-5 record. And that would be nice. That would be nice. And then you can reset and go into the final 5 games of the season feeling pretty good. Still an 80% chance. I think that's what NBC put out. They would have had like a 90% chance if they had beaten Denver last night of making the playoffs. Which would have been great, a little bit more security going forward. But now these next 3 games, I would say you got to go 2-1 at minimum, because it's the Raiders, it's the Bears, and the Bengals without Joe Burrow. So I would say you got to win 2 out of those 3 games. So the Bears, the Raiders, and the Bengals without Joe Burrow. Win 2 out of those 3 games, and you are sitting at 8-6 going into the final 3, and a chance to potentially still win the division depending on how Detroit does over that next 3 game stretch. But if not, still a very good chance of getting into the postseason. And we'll see if the Vikings are able to do that, as they play Detroit twice in the last 3 weeks, and then the Green Bay game more than likely won't mean much, but you never know. The Packers actually have been playing better the last 2 weeks. I doubt it's going to be anything significant in regards to going into the postseason and making a run in that sense, but they've been playing better. So whatever that's worth. And who knows, the Lions could beat up on them this week and make everything the Packers have done the last 2 games pretty irrelevant, because I think if they lose another game, they're kind of they're not totally done, but it'd be pretty difficult for them to get into the postseason at that point, I would say. So yeah, lots of winnable games on that schedule. SkolCon rating, I'm going to quickly do my SkolCon rating, and then we are going to wrap up since going solo here today. But I'm going to go ahead and give mine, and I'm going to say that I'm still at a 3. I'm still at a 3. Starting to fall apart. That is where I am at. I would have probably gone down to a 4 had the Vikings won against Denver. But so I would say I'm at number 3, starting to fall apart. I would have gone down to 4 if they would have won last night. So yeah, make sure to rate your give your SkullCon ranking in the comments section here. Give me your thoughts on that. Everyone is dead is number 1. That's like the worst case scenario, obviously. This is based off DEF CON if you are unfamiliar with this. And then the sky is falling, number 2. Starting to fall apart is number 3. Everything will be okay, number 4. That's when you're starting to kind of, okay, number 4, okay. And then 5 is like, everything's good. We're good to go. We're flying high. So give your SkullCon rating below. And yeah, give us your thoughts about the game. I thought, like I said, defense played well. Offense, played well in spurts, but 3 turnovers again and some conservative play calling going into the final couple of drives from Kevin O'Connell in that game yesterday. So make sure to get your comments in. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Apologize for a shorter show, but we have some technical difficulties going on with Mike, and then also Tony will hopefully be joining us at some point again in the future here, but he's got a lot going on right now. So, but appreciate all of you tuning in, and we will look to keep doing the Fan Express line throughout the course of the season. Usually we will be doing them after the games. But last night we decided to just wait until the day after. And so, yeah, big one against the Bears next Monday night, a week from tonight. And we will plan on doing a post-game show that evening after the game. So make sure to join us for that. But appreciate you all tuning in. I don't think we'll get another. I don't think we'll get a preview show in this week, but we might. I don't know. With Thanksgiving being this week, it might be a little difficult to round up a Bears guy, but I will see what I can do. And until then, as always, Skol Vikings.